What is up, guys? Jake here with a special Vainglory video. We have teamed up with BrokenMyth.net. If you guys have not checked out the website, an incredible place for information for Vainglory, hero builds, just information on the game. It's just an invaluable resource. Go check it out. The link will be in the description. And they have started a series on hero teaching, just sort of an overview of different heroes with professional players, which we have one of those here today, a very special guest, the roamer for Team Solo Mid, the current world champions, FlashX. Flash, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you for having me, Jake. I'm really glad to be here.
All right, well, let's get right into it. Let's talk about this guy, Finn. I mean, he is on the fold all the time now. 116, incredibly strong hero. What are your thoughts on just him overall?
So yeah, Finn it has definitely taken a while to really take hold in the competitive meta. We've seen him a little bit, especially over in Europe. I know Team Secret is kind of known for having used Finn for a while, but with some of the recent buffs that Finn was given in 1.16, he has definitely become a standout in the roam position. And I think that he's very effective in competitive play.
Yeah, it's crazy. You used to see, I mean, pretty much it was Arden, Catherine Show, now Finn, Fortress, all these other roamers are coming in. We got more roamers coming. It's really an awesome time, I would think, to be a roamer such as yourself. So that's very, very cool. Give me your thoughts just on the early game, Finn. What his strengths, his weaknesses. Why do you like him so much as a roamer?
So he's such a strong hero in the roam position because of how tanky he is. He's able to just absorb a ton of damage for his allies while they're able to do damage positioning behind him. Finn also is able to output a ton of damage with his quibble ability, and he can both initiate team fights, both either offensively. His abilities can be used defensively too. So he really fits all around in the competitive meta.
Yeah, his kit is definitely versatile. We're going to talk more about that later. Starting out, early game items, you're in the jungle. What is it? Is there anything just really important that you want to focus on, when you're buying up?
I think that because Finn is the single slowest hero in the Halcyon Fold, that it's really important that he gets travel boots very, very early. If he doesn't have boots and if he doesn't have travel boots, his jungle carry is always going to be waiting on him to finish his rotation. Um, I personally prefer building towards a Warhorn very early on as well for similar reasons. It's just a really good item for both engaging and disengaging from team fights, and because of how slow Finn is, it synergizes really well with his kit.
Nice, definitely something a little bit different than the other, roams that we're used to seeing on the fold. So that's good information. Let's talk about the first rotation because obviously, as a competitive player, it's incredibly important to get that first rotation down and get to that shop at ASAP. How do you like to do it with Finn?
So essentially, there's two different ways that the first rotation can be done, and depending on which rotation you're gonna do, really depends on which jungle carry is helping you complete that rotation. If you're going with a more single target jungle carry like Cruel, then you're gonna want to start with Quibble. Basically, right when the timer hits 24 seconds, and can start channeling Quibble on exactly where the back large double minions will spawn, so that when they spawn right at 25 seconds, his Quibble should be landing immediately. He can basically auto attack these a few times before going ahead and continuing on with the rotation. The second way that you can do this rotation is starting with polite company. Finn can stand in between the two back camps, and right when they spawn, use polite company so that with a hero with an AoE clear ability, such as Rhyme Spire, he'll pull them all three of them together immediately, and that will help clear that rotation incredibly fast as well. One important note is Quibble is more of an aggressive offensive ability, so it's okay to fight the first engagement if you do start with Quibble. However, Polite Company is much more defensive of an ability, so if you do choose this route, you may want to be more careful when engaging after the first rotation.
That is incredibly great tips there, and it blew my mind the first time I saw you land that quibble as the back minions were spawning. I was like, oh my god, that's why he's a pro. Okay, so awesome tips there. You just mentioned the first fight. Let's talk about the first fight. You've cleared the you've got the quibble. You've cleared the your first rotation. You're at the store. Maybe you've beat them to the store. Do you want when you engage? Is there anything that any tips there? Because that's an all important fight. We all know. What do you look for in that first engagement?
So the first engagement is definitely important. It can often set the tone for the rest of the game if it goes really successful, or even if it's really disastrous for your team. So making sure you're having a good first engagement is really important. First thing you want to be aware of is if you're able to rotate faster than the enemy team, and you can use the flare that you started with to really gauge this. If you're able to rotate faster than the enemy team, then you can position in a way that pins them away from the jungle shop and prevents them from shopping. This way, if you take an engagement, you know that you're going to have an advantage during this first team fight. Um, However, if your rotation is slower, the enemy team can do the exact same thing to you, and you need to be really careful about taking this engagement. The other thing to be really aware of is the enemy laner. If he goes missing, even if you've positioned yourself in a manner that has prevented the enemy team from shopping, you'll want to be careful about him rotating down and you and your other jungle carry getting in a bad position where you might lose a 3v2 engagement.
Nice, good stuff. All right, let's get into the guts of the hero itself. Tell us a little bit about Finn's heroic perk.
So his heroic perk is called Unstoppable, and it literally is just that. Finn gets, I think, an additional 15% bonus from any bonus health that he builds. So anytime you build health items, which Warhorn, Fountain of Renewal, Crucible, which are all essential core components of his kit, it's just going to make Finn much, much more tanky than any other heroes in the roam position.
Yeah, and you mentioned that you like that early Warhorn with him, so that fits right into that heroic perk very nicely with that bonus health that it provides. Talking about his abilities, we've talked on Quibble and about how powerful it is. Talk to us a little bit about that, how you try to set up landing that, because obviously landing that versus missing might completely change the outcome of a team fight.
Yeah, so it's really important that Quibble gets used effectively. It doesn't have the shortest cooldown in the world, so if you miss it at the start of the team fight, there's a possibility that you're not going to have it up again. So being really patient when using this ability is important. You're going to want to wait until either you position in a manner where you know you can hit the enemy heroes, or you need to wait until more agile enemies such as Vox, who has Sonic Zoom, or Glaive with Afterburn, use these mobile abilities before Finn tries to go in and land the Quibble.
Okay, nice. Now, I know it's probably a situational question, or maybe it's an all or none. Would you overdrive this ability?
Yeah, definitely. So once Quibble becomes overdriven, it turns it into a massive slow into a stun, which is a huge, huge advantage for a team fight. It opens the possibility to possibly stun three enemies using a single ability, which is really, really strong.
Yeah, nice. Of course, that's a game changer going from a slow to a stun. All right, his B ability, Polite Company. Tell us about that one.
So Polite Company, Finn basically jumps straight up in the air, comes back down, and once he hits the ground, first thing he does is pulls enemies towards him. Makes it synergize really well with Quibble because now the enemies who may have been too far for a Quibble are now much closer to him, so he's able to land the Quibble. The second thing it does is it grants fortified health to both Finn and his allies. The thing that's really cool about this ability is that when Finn starts building bonus health, shield, and armor, every time he uses Polite Company, he actually gives some of the health, shield, and armor to his allies, which is also hugely important during a team fight.
Yeah, definitely. That fortified health, it just seems like sometimes you just can't get through it to get them down. So that can change the outcome of the fight as well. Now, overdrive or no?
I would say definitely yes. I personally prefer to overdrive both my quibble and my polite company. Polite company, when it does get overdriven, will pull enemies even closer to Finn, as well as making the fortified health barrier that Finn grants to his allies last an additional extra second, which can be huge during late game team fights.
Okay, cool. All right, last ability, his ultimate forced accord. Now, let's be honest with ourselves here. This is his sort of signature ability. This is what you see on the highlight reels. Throwing that big hook out there, bringing people in. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so this is definitely one of the harder abilities to use in Finn's kit. He basically throws a giant hook out in a set direction, and once it hits its max range, it immediately starts coming back towards Finn, and with that brings all enemies with it. Um, in competitive play, this ability has to be used very carefully because if you use it when you're standing too close to enemies, they'll frequently reflex block it because the hook will pass through them and continue on before it starts coming back. Use this most effectively, you're going to want to wait until enemies are at the max distance possible so that the second the hook starts returning back to Finn, it also has the enemies in that hook, which makes it a lot harder to reflex block.
Right, just less time for them to actually react to it and get that reflex block down. So a better chance of actually picking up the pull. All right. Tell me about. We talked about the Warhorn, how you sort of prioritize this Warhorn and your journey boots over normal. I would say roam items that you pick up. But what other early game items are you definitely going for? By the time you get to that mid game, you want to have them in your bag of tricks.
So on top of Warhorn and Journey Boots, you definitely want to start building towards Fountain of Renewal. Again, it offers a lot of additional shield, a little bit of additional armor, and a little bit of additional bonus health. So it synergizes really well with Finn's Polite Company, and when he uses that ability to give those stats to his allies. On top of that, when you get into early game team fights where there's not as much potential for heroes to get burst down immediately, he can use it to help keep his allies alive.
Nice. Okay, perfect. All right. So obviously we've got a few inline items here, and people are always asking the question, give me the build, give me the build. They want it sort of on paper, but this game, like most, it's all situational. There's counter building, there's all those things. So clearly, going from where you're at, you've got your Warhorn, you've got your boots, you've got your fountain. Everything else is pretty much situational. Tell me some of those inline situational items you want to go for in a game, and just quickly, maybe an example or two of what that might be, what situation you might be in to build those items.
There's probably three really key situational items: Crucible, Atlas Pauldron, and Clockwork. Crucible is going to be best used in a situation where enemies have AoE abilities, so area of effect abilities like Scarf's Fan the Flames, Adagio's Ultimate, things of that nature, where they can affect Finn as well as his allies. So having Crucible is really important for blocking that. Atlas Pauldron going to be best used against heroes with very high attack speeds, and Clockwork is just really strong because it enables Finn to frequently use his abilities multiple times during a team fight. So it really gives Finn a much higher impact during a team fight. And again, with Crucible and Atlas Pauldron, especially the bonus health and the bonus armor, respectively, are really important in synergizing with Finn's Polite Company as well as his unstoppable heroic perk to really make him have a much larger impact as a roam hero.
All right, you just mentioned synergy, and that's interesting because what's crazy is that Finn seems to synergize with both heroes that like to stay at distance and poke, and obviously heroes like a Rhyme or something or a Cruel that really want to get in there and get people right on top of them. So, talk a little bit about that positioning, how he synergizes with both of those hero types.
Yeah, so he really is so strong as a hero because he can synergize with so many heroes in many different ways. One of those hero types is heroes who are typically mages who like to keep their distance and stay outwards from a team fight, like a Scarf or a Celeste. Finn can act as just a really, really brutal front line that makes it really hard for enemies to get to his backline carries. He can use his quibble to stun enemies in place. He can use his force to cord if enemies are trying to run past Finn and pull them back towards him. Force Accord especially can be used both offensively and defensively when you're going against a hero comp that's very, very dive heavy, like a Black Feather or a Sky. Finn can actually save his Force Accord to pull enemies away from his allies. So you can basically just keep those long distance heroes safe so that they can prioritize building a lot more damage rather than defensive items. The other way Finn can be used is he synergizes really well with tanky heroes such as Krull or Rona, who naturally have health barriers built into their kits, and Polite Company just stacks on top of those, just making them even more tanky heroes.
Yeah, watching you play a little bit, it was really interesting to see how, depending on the team comps, you use that hook both offensively and defensively. And like you said, if you had, I saw that one game you played with the Rhyme, where he had his obviously his health barrier. You stacked yours on top of it, and it seemed like those team fights he just wouldn't go down. And then all of a sudden, the enemy team was gone. So Flash, obviously, we could talk about this all day long. I know that you have a lot to say, but for the sake of time, I think we should wrap it up here. But I want to thank you for taking the time for a guy like you. To come on and give this information to people that are trying to get better at the game, that want to learn about the hero. Just so much respect and so much thankfulness coming from my way towards yours. Couldn't be happier to have had you on the show.
Well, thank you. I definitely really enjoyed being on here, and hopefully we can work together soon again in the future.
Sounds great, man. All right, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Until next time, Jake and Flash X. Can you believe it? Doing our best to help you guys suck less.